Clara Whitfield felt like a painting put up for sale that night. Displayed, priced. The only thing missing was the buyer's signature. The ball was grand, magnificent, one of London's brightest nights. Chandeliers blazed, music flowed, everyone laughed and mingled. But Clara stood by the window, staring into the darkness outside. Because that night, the inside felt even darker to her. Lord Hargrove stood beside her. 58, silver-haired, always wearing a perfectly measured smile. London admired him. Everyone knew him as a respectable, reliable man. From time to time, he leaned toward Clara, whispering something, introducing her to those around them. Clara smiled each time. Her face could manage it. She was good at that. But the smile never once reached her eyes. At the far end of the hall, her stepfather, Sir William, sipped his wine while conversing with acquaintances. He was very pleased tonight. Clara could see it even from a distance. She recognized that satisfied, calculating look. Because Sir William's happiness always came from the same source, when a plan was proceeding exactly as intended. And tonight, everything was. Clara looked beautiful, Lord Hargrove was content, and the arrangement between them would soon be made official. An arrangement. Yes, that was the word. There was no other for it. Sir William had long since decided to marry Clara to Lord Hargrove. Hargrove was wealthy and influential, and this marriage would throw open every door in Sir William's business world. What Clara wanted, what she felt, those had never once entered into Sir William's calculations. That morning her mother had stopped her at the top of the stairs, gripping her arm. Her voice had been low, her eyes tired. "You'll get used to it, Clara," she had said. "It will be difficult for a while, but you will get used to it. I did." Clara had looked at her mother's pale face, how she had slowly, quietly faded over the years beside Sir William, and now she was advising her daughter to accept the same life. Clara had not known what to say. She had only nodded and gone downstairs. When Lord Hargrove turned to greet an acquaintance, Clara was alone for a brief moment. She drew a deep breath, the first real breath she had taken that night. At that exact moment, she felt someone watching her from across the room. When she turned, she saw a man in his 30s, dark-haired, tall. He stood within the crowd, yet apart from it, and he was looking at her. Their eyes met for a moment. Clara turned away immediately, but the look stayed with her, clinging to her thoughts. A little later, Clara took a glass of champagne and moved toward the large column in the corner. It was quieter there, less crowded, easier to breathe. "I like this corner as well." She turned. The man was there. Up close, he looked younger, and his eyes were intensely attentive. Clara wanted to leave, but his voice was neither arrogant nor affected, just simple, natural. It kept her where she was. "Did you come here to escape the crowd?" Clara asked. "No," he said, "to observe. There's a difference." He introduced himself, Edward Ashby. Clara gave her name. They spoke, 10 minutes, perhaps 15. And in that short time, Clara noticed something strange. This man was truly listening to her. His eyes stayed on her. They did not wander. When had anyone last listened to her like that? Clara searched for an answer and found none. Something tightened inside her. She recognized the feeling. It was dangerous. She shut it down. At that moment, Lord Hargrove approached them from across the room. He and Edward exchanged a brief cold greeting. Edward had known Hargrove before and had not asked who Clara was. He had assumed the young woman beside him must be his daughter. until a passing acquaintance leaned toward Hargrove and whispered, "You look splendid tonight with your fiancé." Hargrove inclined his head with satisfaction. Edward froze. His eyes turned to Clara, and in that look, Clara saw something. She could not fully understand it, nor did she wish to. She looked away. On the way home, the carriage moved through London streets. Sir William sat across from her, satisfied and at ease. "Hargrove was very pleased tonight," he said. Clara did not respond. "It will be official soon," Sir William added. "Be ready." Clara simply looked out the window. London passed by. Dark streets, wet pavements, distant lamps. Be ready. As if she had done anything else her entire life. But that night, when she entered her room and closed the door, another voice lingered in her mind. A quiet, low, unexpected voice. "I like this corner as well. To observe. There's a difference." Clara tried to drive it away. She couldn't. The next morning, the house was silent. Sir William had left early. He always had business. Her mother was upstairs, in her room, the curtains drawn. Clara sat alone in the kitchen, drinking her tea. The sound of carriage wheels drifted in from outside. A vendor called out in the distance. London carried on as it always did. As if nothing had happened the night before. Clara looked at her tea. Something had happened. She tried to push the thought away. It didn't work. That same afternoon, Sir William summoned her to his study. When Clara entered, her stepfather sat behind his desk, composed as always, cold as ever. He gestured for her to sit. "Lord Hargrove will make his formal proposal this week," he said. Plainly, like delivering news. He was not asking, he was informing. Clara folded her hands in her lap. "I understand," she said. Sir William looked at her. "Your mother spoke to you." "She did." "Then you know what is expected of you." Clara said nothing. There was nothing to say, or rather there was, but it would serve no purpose. She had learned over the years what it meant to oppose Sir William. She had learned it by watching her mother's silence. "Hargrove is a good man," Sir William said. "He will provide for you." He paused. "This is what is best for everyone in this family, Clara. I expect you to understand that." Best for everyone. Clara turned the phrase over in her mind. Best for everyone, meaning best for Sir William. Best for the business alliance he intended to build with Hargrove. What Clara felt, what she wanted, what kind of life she wished to lead, those had no place in that equation. "All right," Clara said. Sir William nodded, satisfied. "Good." Clara stood, walked to the door, then paused at the threshold and turned back. "What will happen to my mother after this marriage?" she asked. Sir William was caught off guard. "What do you mean? Will she remain here?" "Of course," he said, frowning slightly. "Why would you ask that?" Clara said nothing. She turned and left. She spoke with her mother that evening, after dinner, when Sir William had retreated to his study. They remained in the sitting room by candle light, with the sound of rain outside. "Mother," Clara said, "do you truly want this for me?" Her mother looked at the embroidery in her hands, then at Clara. There was something in her eyes, sadness, resignation, perhaps both. Clara could not tell. "Want," her mother said, her voice faltering. "Wanting is a luxury, Clara. You are old enough to know that. But you are not happy. You never have been." Her mother was silent for a while. "I am safe," she said at last. "I have a roof. I have bread. That is not a small thing." Being safe is not the same as being happy. Her mother looked at her, long, tired, as if Clara was right, but she did not wish to hear it. Hargrove will treat you well, she said. He is kind. With Sir William, She stopped. Your situation will be different. Clara looked at her mother, at that pale face, those tired eyes, everything that had been diminished over the years, and something settled inside her then, a quiet, heavy decision with no escape from it. She would leave her mother in this house, with Sir William. She had no other choice. But before she left, she wanted to know one thing. Was she accepting this for her mother's sake, or because there truly was no other way? Both, Clara thought. Both. 3 days later, Lord Hargrove made his formal proposal. It took place in Sir William's study. Clara was called in. Hargrove stood as she entered. Everything followed the rules. Everything was in its proper place. Hargrove spoke politely. Clara listened politely. Sir William sat in the corner, smiling with satisfaction. Yes, Clara said. A single word. Her voice did not tremble. Hargrove inclined his head with pleasure. Sir William rose, hands were shaken. Clara stood there and thought, was that all? Could a life be sold so easily? One yes, a few handshakes, and everything was finished. It seemed so. That week, Vivian came. She knocked, entered, stopped the moment she saw Clara's face. What happened? She asked. Everything is fine, Clara said. It's not, Vivian replied. Your face says otherwise. They sat. Clara told her not everything, but enough. Hargrove, Sir William, her mother, that single word yes. Vivian listened without interrupting, without commenting. When Clara finished, there was a long silence. Do you regret it? Vivian asked at last. Clara thought. No, she said. What else could I have done? Vivian started to speak, then stopped. She tried again. That man at the ball, she said. The Duke of Ravenswood. He was watching you closely that night. Everyone was watching, Clara said. He was watching differently. Clara stood and went to the window. Outside it was gray, the usual London gray. It doesn't matter, she said. I've given my word. Vivian looked at her from behind, but said nothing. But 2 days later, as Clara was walking in the park, she saw Edward Ashby. It was a coincidence, or at least it appeared so. In that quiet corner of Hyde Park, Clara walked every morning, and today was no different. Edward was coming from the opposite direction. They saw each other at the same moment. Both stopped. A moment passed. Edward approached. He inclined his head. Miss Whitfield. Duke, said Clara. A brief silence followed, not awkward, but full. Edward looked at Clara. Clara looked at Edward. Then he spoke. How are you? It was an ordinary question, the kind everyone asked in London without expecting an answer. But Edward was expecting one. Clara felt it, and for that reason, surprising even herself, she answered honestly. I don't know, she said. Edward did not respond immediately. He simply looked at her. Then, in a low voice, he asked, Do you want this marriage? Clara froze. No one had asked her that. Not her mother, not Sir William. Vivian had circled the question, but never so directly. No one had ever asked it this plainly. That is not a question for you to ask, Clara said. Her voice came out firm. You're right, Edward said. He did not step back, but neither did he apologize. He simply looked at her. And in that look, Clara saw something. It was not curiosity, but something deeper, as if he already knew the answer and only wanted Clara to know it too. Clara turned and walked away. She walked quickly without looking back. She did not stop until she had left the park. She reached home, closed the door, and stood at the foot of the stairs. Her hands were trembling. From anger, she asked herself, Or from something else? She did not answer. But that night, as she lay in bed, Edward Ashby's voice kept returning. Do you want this marriage? And the small, dangerous, unquiet voice inside her whispered, no. That night, when Clara entered her mother's room, the woman was sitting on the bed, holding an old letter. When she saw Clara, she quickly folded it and slipped it beneath her pillow. Clara noticed, but did not ask. She sat at the edge of the bed. For a while, neither of them spoke. The sound of rain came softly from outside, persistent, steady. Mother, Clara said at last, were you ever happy, truly happy? Her mother looked at her, long and tired, then she turned toward the window. Happiness, she said. Happiness is something the young women think about, Clara. Then life teaches them the truth. What truth? That being safe is what matters most. Her voice was flat, no bitterness, no nostalgia, only acceptance, hardened over years, unquestionable. Hargrove will keep you safe. That is not a small thing. Clara looked at her mother, at the pale skin, the tired hands, the letter hidden beneath the pillow. Who had this woman once been? What dreams had she had? What voice? What laughter? Who had she been before Sir William? Clara had never known. She had never asked. Do you regret it? Clara asked. Marrying Sir William? Her mother turned. She had not expected the question. A moment passed, brief but heavy. I think of you, she said at last. I think of nothing else. It was not an answer. They both knew it. Clara stood, kissed her mother's forehead, and left. As she closed the door, something heavy settled inside her. She had been willing to risk everything not to become like her mother. And yet now she had said yes to Lord Hargrove and chosen the same path. What difference is there? She thought. This is the difference, she answered herself. My mother endured it for love. I will endure it without it. Which one was heavier? She did not know. That week there was a dinner at Lady Ashton's. Clara did not want to go, but Sir William insisted. Hargrove would be there, and there was no refusing. She sat beside Hargrove, spoke politely, smiled politely. The dinner stretched on. Clara looked at her plate, her window, the clock. Then they moved into the drawing room, and Edward Ashby was there. When Clara saw him, something shifted inside her, sharp, physical, immediate. She tried to stop it. She could not. Edward had seen her too. Their eyes met, and both turned away at once, in perfect, simultaneous retreat. Hargrove began speaking with an acquaintance. Clara excused herself, stepping into the adjoining room under the pretense of getting a drink. She took a deep breath. This is foolish, she told herself. You gave your word. You made your choice. This is finished. You've come here to escape as well. She turned. Edward stood in the doorway. I'm not escaping, Clara said. To observe, Edward replied. A faint smile touched his face. They both remembered the question in the park, the way Clara had turned and walked away. Neither spoke of it. Clara said nothing. Edward stepped inside, took a glass from the side table, and stood beside her. There was a proper distance between them, the distance London approved of. Yet Clara felt it too strongly. I apologize for the question I asked in the park, Edward said. His tone was even, not overly apologetic, not dismissive. It was not my place. Clara had expected this, either an apology or silence. The apology surprised her. It's past, she said. It isn't, Edward replied. I made you feel obliged to answer. I'm sorry for that. Clara looked at him. This man was different. Not like the other men in London. No artificial politeness. No familiar arrogance. He said what he meant, and left the rest unsaid. And his eyes, those attentive, perceptive eyes, were always entirely on her. "Why are you here tonight?" Clara asked. "Lady Ashton is an old family friend," Edward said. "I attend every year." "Every year?" Clara inclined her head. "Then it's a coincidence." "Not everything is," Edward said. Clara looked at him. "What do you mean?" Edward hesitated for a moment. Then quietly, "I wanted to see you again," he said. "I know I shouldn't say that, but is it better to leave the truth unsaid?" Clara did not answer. She shouldn't have. What could she say? She had given her word. She was Lord Hargrove's fiancée. This conversation should have ended there. She knew it. Edward knew it. But neither of them left. They stood side by side for a while, silent, holding their glasses, sheltered behind London's practiced civility. Then they began to speak. Later, Clara would not clearly remember how it started. One subject led to another, and suddenly she found herself laughing, truly laughing, the kind she had not allowed herself in nights like these. Then she stopped, because she noticed Hargrove was standing in the doorway. How long he had been there, Clara did not know, but his gaze said everything. He was not looking at Clara, he was looking at Edward, and in that look, London's courteous, respectable Lord Hargrove was gone. Someone else stood there, cold, calculating, warning. Clara felt something drop inside her. Edward had seen him too. He stepped back, one step, but a necessary one. "Good evening, Miss Whitfield," he said. His voice was steady, no urgency, no apology. "Good evening," Clara replied. Edward left. Hargrove approached her. "Are you acquainted with Ravenswood?" he asked. His voice was smooth, as always, but there was something beneath it. Clara heard it. "We met at the ball," Clara said. "We've crossed paths a few times." "I see." Hargrove inclined his head. "Ravenswood is a good man, but—" He paused, then smiled. "Spending so much time with an engaged woman is remarked upon in London. I say this for your sake." "For your sake." Clara heard it, and something inside her tightened. It was a warning, polite, refined, wrapped in a smile, but a warning nonetheless. "I understand," Clara said. On the carriage ride home, silence filled the space between them. Clara stared out the window as London passed by. She could not shake Hargrove's look, cold, measured, cautioning. Since the ball, he had always been kind, always composed, always precise. But tonight, for a single moment, she had seen what lay beneath that kindness, and it unsettled her. She did not want to ask herself why, because she already knew the answer. It was not Hargrove's look that unsettled her. It was watching Edward Ashby leave. That night, she could not sleep. Edward's voice returned. "Is it better to leave the truth unsaid?" And that laughter, that real, unguarded, unexpected laughter. Then came Hargrove's look, cold, calculating. They stood side by side in her mind, one warm, one cold, one open, one closed. Clara shut her eyes. "You gave your word," she told herself. "You made your decision. Yes, one word." But that one word was everything. She turned in bed, stared at the ceiling for a long time. And then she thought, Hargrove's kindness was always measured, always controlled, never spilling over. As if it were a costume, put on each morning, taken off each night. What lay beneath it? She had never asked herself that before. Now she had, and she did not know the answer. Edward decided to investigate Hargrove after that night. It was not for Clara, or at least that was what he told himself at first. Something simply did not sit right with him. He had seen Hargrove's look, not when directed at Clara, but at himself, and in that look, the respectable, reliable Lord Hargrove of London had vanished. Someone else had been there. Edward recognized such looks. He began to inquire. First, he went to an old acquaintance, a man who had spent years in Parliament, who knew every family in London, who had heard every secret in one form or another. Edward mentioned Hargrove's name. The man paused for a moment. "Are you asking about his first wife?" he said. Edward waited. "Not Zeynep," the man said. "His first wife, Margaret, 10 years ago." His voice lowered. "They say she ran away, that she was unfaithful, that she abandoned her husband, left in disgrace." "And what do you say?" Edward asked. The man looked down at the table. "I say nothing," he replied, "but I think that woman had to run." After leaving there, Edward went directly to one of Hargrove's former neighbors. She was an elderly woman who had lived beside the Hargrove family for years. She opened the door, saw Edward, and let him in. "I'm asking about Margaret Hargrove," Edward said. The woman fell silent for a moment. Then she rose, walked to the window, and looked outside. "She was a good woman," she said. "Quiet, kind. In the early years, she was happy. At least, it seemed that way." She paused. Then she changed. She was always at home, never went anywhere. I saw marks on her face a few times. I didn't ask what they were, didn't dare to. She turned back. Then one morning, she was gone. Hargrove said she was ungrateful, that she ran away. No one objected. "Where did she go?" Edward asked. "I don't know," the woman said. Then she added, "But I was grateful that she managed to leave." Edward continued his investigation for 3 more days. Former servants, former neighbors, acquaintances from Hargrove's business circle. Everyone knew something, but no one said everything. Hargrove was still powerful, still influential, and no one wanted to stand against him. But when the pieces came together, the picture became clear. Hargrove was someone else inside his own house. Not kind, not measured, but controlling, restrictive, suffocating. Margaret had lived in that house for 10 years, and at the end of those 10 years, escape had been her only way out. On the 4th day, Edward found where Margaret Hargrove was. A small town in Scotland, remote, quiet, untouched by any echo of London. She had rented a house with a small garden, living there alone. Edward wrote her a letter. He waited for a reply. The reply came within a week. Edward remained seated for a long time as he read it. Margaret Hargrove had written everything in that letter, as though she were pouring out everything she had been unable to say for years. She wrote of those 10 years, of the 4 walls of that house, of a life that grew narrower, darker, harder to breathe within. And at the very end, she wrote this: "The day I ran, I breathed for the first time. London believes me ungrateful, believes me disgraced. Let them. I am alive. That is enough." Edward folded the letter and placed it on the table. Clara's face came to his mind. What she had said in the park, I don't know. The tension he had seen in her when she noticed Hargrove's look at that dinner. Clara was the one who would go into Hargrove's house. Clara would be the one inside those 4 walls. Edward stood. He put on his coat. He went outside, got into the carriage, and gave the driver the address of the Pemberton house. The carriage moved. On the way, he thought, what exactly would he do? He would tell Clara everything, but then what? Clara had given her word. Sir William was pressuring her. There was no easy way out. He knew that. But allowing her to remain ignorant of what she should know, allowing her to walk into danger without understanding it. He could not accept that either. The carriage stopped. Edward stepped down. But the one who opened the door was not Clara. It was Sir William. They stood face to face in the doorway in that grey London afternoon. Sir William saw him and his expression shifted. Surprise, then recognition, then coldness, all in quick succession. "Duke," said Sir William. His voice was even but not empty. "Sir William," Edward said, "I need to speak with Miss Whitfield." Sir William looked at him for a moment. Then he leaned slightly against the door, neither letting him in nor fully blocking him, positioned exactly in between. "Clara is not at home today," he said. He was lying. Edward knew it. Sir William knew that Edward knew it. "It's important," Edward said. "Important matters are discussed between families," Sir William replied. His voice was still controlled, but now the undertone was visible, hard, calculating, cautioning. There should be no reason for the Duke of Ravenswood to have a private meeting with Clara. She is an engaged woman. Edward looked at him. A moment passed, brief, silent, the kind in which everything is said without a word being spoken. "I wish to inquire about Lord Hargrove's first wife," Edward said. Plainly, not a threat, not a question, just a statement. Sir William's face changed. It was slight, very brief, but Edward saw it. And what he saw told him everything. Sir William knew. He knew Hargrove's secret. And still he was forcing Clara into that marriage. "This is not a matter for this house," Sir William said. His voice was now cold. The politeness was gone. "And it does not concern you." "It concerns Clara," Edward said. "Clara is my daughter." "Your stepdaughter." Silence. Sir William's eyes narrowed. "Ravenswood," he said, his voice lowering. "Do not involve yourself in this family. The arrangement with Hargrove is complete. Clara has accepted. Everyone is satisfied." He paused. "You should be as well." He closed the door. Edward remained standing there. The noise of the street continued. Horses, wheels, distant voices. Everything was normal. Everything went on. But only one thing moved through Edward's mind. Sir William knew. He knew what Hargrove was, and still, for money, for business, for his own calculations, he was sending Clara into that house. This was no longer just a forced marriage. It was something else. When Edward returned home, he sat at his desk and took up a pen. He began to write to Clara everything, Margaret's letter, his investigation, the shift in Sir William's expression. He wrote, stopped, tore the page, wrote again, stopped, tore it again. This would not work as a letter. He needed to tell her face to face. But how would he reach her? Sir William was watching. Hargrove would soon be everywhere. And Clara had given her word, made her decision, closed herself off. Vivian, he thought, Clara's friend. He had seen her at the ball. That could be the way. The next morning he sent a note to Vivian, short, direct. "I need to speak with Miss Whitfield. It is important. Can you assist? E.A." The reply came that afternoon, a single line. "Tomorrow morning, Hyde Park, 10 o'clock. I will be there as well. V.U.V." Edward set the note down. He stood, went to the window. London carried on outside, grey, noisy, indifferent. But tomorrow, Clara would learn everything. And then, what would happen then? Edward did not know. But he knew this. Clara could not go into that house without knowing the truth. He would not allow it. The morning was cold. Hyde Park was nearly empty at that hour. A few walkers, a child in the distance, trees just emerging from the mist. Clara walked arm in arm with Vivienne, a strange feeling in her chest. Vivian had not explained why she had called her here, only said, "Come, it's important." Clara had not asked. Perhaps she had been afraid to. Then she saw Edward. She stopped. Vivian tightened her grip on her arm. "Listen to him," she said quietly. "Just listen." Edward approached. He inclined his head. Vivian stepped slightly back, unspoken, but understood by both. "Thank you for coming," Edward said. "Vivian called me," Clara said. Her voice was firm. "Tell me why you are here and I will go." Edward looked at her for a long moment. Whether searching for the right words or trying to read her face, Clara could not tell. Then he said, "Will you walk? I need to explain. It's long." Clara hesitated. Then she began to walk. Edward told her everything. From the beginning, his investigation, the old acquaintance, the neighbor, Margaret's letter. He did not omit anything, did not embellish. He told it as it was. His voice was steady, calm, but every word carried weight. Clara listened as she walked. She did not interrupt, did not ask questions. She simply listened. She heard of Margaret's 10 years. She heard of the 4 walls. She heard the sentence. "The day I ran, I breathed for the first time." And something inside her, slowly, quietly, froze. When Edward finished, they both fell silent. They were walking by the lake. The water was still. The gray of morning lay over everything. Clara walked a little longer, then stopped. A bench stood nearby. She sat. Edward sat beside her. "Sir William knows," Edward said. "I saw it in his face when I went to the door. He knows what Hargrove is, and he is still sending you there." Clara looked at her hands. They rested on her knees, still, silent. "Are you certain?" she asked. "Yes." A moment passed. "May I read Margaret's letter?" Clara said. Edward took it from his pocket and handed it to her. Clara read it, slowly, every line, every word. When she finished, she returned to the beginning and read it again. Then she folded it and gave it back. Her eyes had filled with tears. She held them, did not let them fall. She stared out at the lake for a long time without speaking. "She is like my mother," she said at last, her voice low. "What do you mean?" "Margaret." Clara turned to him. "She lived in that house for 10 years. She slowly disappeared. In the end, she had to run." She paused. "My mother couldn't run. She is still there." Edward said nothing. There was nothing to say. "I wouldn't have been able to run either," Clara said. "At least, that's what I thought." She stood. "But this—" She turned. "This is different. This is not just an unhappy marriage. This is dangerous." "Yes," Edward said. Clara walked a few steps toward the lake, then stopped. Her back was to Edward. She was thinking. He could feel it in the silence. Then she turned. "I will go to Sir William," she said. "I will tell him everything." "He will not listen," Edward said. "I know." Her eyes were steady. This was no longer the Clara cornered and composed. There was something else in her now. "But I will say it. I need to hear what he will say, from his own mouth." Edward stood. "I will come with you." "No," Clara said. "Clara, no." Her voice was not harsh, only clear. "This is my family. I will go. You—" She paused. "You should wait, for now." Vivian approached them, quietly at the right moment. Clara turned to her. "I'm going home," she said. Vivian looked at her, first at Clara, then at Edward, reading both their faces. "Are you all right?" she asked Clara. "No," Clara said, "but I will be." Clara left. Edward and Vivian remained in the park, standing side by side, watching her walk away. "A strong woman," Vivian said. "I know," Edward replied. She looked at him. "Do you love her?" Edward did not answer immediately. He looked at the lake, then in the direction Clara had gone. "This is not the time for me to be thinking about that," he said. "That's not an answer," Vivian said. Edward was silent for a moment. "Yes," he said at last, plainly, no more, no less. Then he turned. "But first, she needs to be safe." When Clara returned home, Sir William was in his study. She knocked. "May I come in?" "Come." She entered and closed the door behind her. She remained standing in front of the desk. She did not sit, did not wish to. Sir William set his pen down and looked at her. "What is it?" "I have learned something about Lord Hargrove's first wife," Clara said. The room fell silent. Sir William's face did not change, but his eyes did. That small, quick shift. This time, Clara did not miss it. "Who told you?" Sir William asked. "That doesn't matter," Clara said. "What matters is whether it is true." "Without knowing what you've heard." "Margaret Hargrove lived in that house for 10 years, Clara said. Her voice did not tremble. "In the end, she had to run. You knew that." Silence. Sir William stood and walked to the window, as he always did when thinking. He looked outside for a while. "Gossip," he said at last. "Empty talk in London." "It's not gossip," Clara said. "How would you know?" "I read the letter, a letter written in Margaret's own hand." Sir William turned. This time, the cold calculation in his eyes was fully visible. He was no longer hiding it, no longer felt the need to. "Hargrove is a powerful man," he said. "Wealthy, influential. Yes, his first marriage did not go well. Not every marriage does." His voice flattened. "But yours will be different. You are an intelligent girl. You will know how to behave." Clara looked at him, at the face of the man who had been her stepfather for years, who had subdued her mother for years, and was now selling her. And she saw this. Sir William did not think it was wrong. Not truly. In his mind, everything was calculation. Clara was an asset, Hargrove was a door, the arrangement was a gain. "No," Clara said. Sir William stopped. "What?" "No," she repeated. "I do not accept this marriage." Sir William's expression changed. Surprise, then anger, then cold restraint, all in quick succession. "Clara!" His voice lowered, warning. "Think before you speak." "I have thought," Clara said. "I do not accept this marriage." "You gave your word." "I gave it under pressure." "It is a family decision. It is my life," Clara said. Her voice did not rise, but it cut, sharp, clear, immovable. "My decision about my life." Sir William stepped toward the desk and stopped. He looked at her, long, cold, calculating. "Hargrove expects this marriage," he said. "I expect this marriage. The future of this family depends on it." He paused. "If you destroy it, you will bear the consequences." "What consequences?" Clara asked. "You will leave this house. Your mother will remain here, alone." Clara froze. This was it. It had always been this, her mother. Sir William knew it, had always known it. Her only weakness, and he used it without hesitation. A moment passed, long, heavy, the kind in which everything is weighed. "My mother will come with me," Clara said. Sir William let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Your mother will go nowhere." "Let's ask her." "Clara." "Let's ask her," Clara said. "Now, let's go upstairs and she can tell us herself, whether she wants to stay or leave." Her eyes did not leave his. "If she wants to stay, she stays, and I will know what to do, but you cannot decide without asking." Sir William looked at her. Clara looked back. That cold, calculated silence filled the room between them. Something flickered in Sir William's eyes, quick, small, but Clara saw it. Was it fear? Perhaps not. but it resembled it. "Go to your room," Sir William said. His voice had dropped. "This conversation is over." "It is over for me as well," Clara said. "And so is this marriage." She turned, walked to the door. "Clara." Sir William's voice came from behind her, different now, not harsh, not threatening, something else. "You do not want to stand against Hargrove." Clara placed her hand on the door handle. "That is no longer the only thing I do not want," she said. She opened the door, left. Her hands were trembling as she climbed the stairs. She went to her mother's room, knocked, and entered. Her mother was sitting by the window, her usual place, in the usual dim light. She turned as Clara entered. "What happened?" she asked. She had read her face immediately. Clara sat beside her and took her hand, and she told her everything. Everything, Margaret, the letter, Sir William, what had just happened. She held her mother's hand as she spoke. Her mother listened, without interrupting, without commenting, just listening. When Clara finished, they sat in silence for a long time. Her mother looked at Clara's hand, then at her own, then out the window to London's grey streets. "I knew as well," her mother said quietly. Clara looked up. "What?" "About Hargrove." She turned. Her eyes were filled, but no tears fell. She held them as she had learned to do for years. "There were rumors, I heard them too." She paused, but William insisted, and I. Her voice broke. "I stayed silent. I always stayed silent." Clara tightened her grip on her hand. "Will you come with me?" she asked. "Will you leave this house?" Her mother looked at her, with that tired, faded face worn down by years, and Clara searched for something there, something she had searched for before and never found. But now there was something, small, fragile, but there. "Where will we go?" her mother asked. "I don't know yet," Clara said, "but we will go." Her mother looked at her for a long time. Then she lowered her head, a small, hesitant nod, but it meant yes. Clara embraced her. At first, her mother hesitated, as if she had forgotten how to be held, how to be close. Then she returned the embrace, tightly, and in that moment, Clara cried against her shoulder, quietly, briefly, something long held, finally breaking free. Her mother cried too. They remained like that, in the small room in the dim light, while the sounds of London drifted faintly from afar. That night, Clara wrote a note to Vivienne. Short, direct. "Can you pass this to Edward Ashby? He no longer needs to wait. The war has begun. See." When Edward received the note, he was standing by the window. He read it, once, then again. He no longer needs to wait. The war has begun. He placed the note on the table, sat down, and thought, but not for long, because the plan had already been there in his mind. It had been waiting since Margaret's letter, arranged, ready, only waiting for the moment. The moment had come. Early the next morning, he went to his old acquaintance, the man from Parliament, who knew everything, who knew every door. He sat across from him, placed Margaret's letter on the table. The man looked at it, then at Edward. "What do you intend to do?" "I want London to know Hargrove is finished," Edward said, not quietly, loudly. The man picked up the letter, read it. He studied the page for a long time. "Does Margaret want this?" he asked. "I wrote to her," Edward said. "Her reply came yesterday." He took out another sheet. "She does." The man stood, went to the window, thought, then turned back. "Hargrove has two close allies in Parliament," he said. "If those two are shaken, he will not stand. London will handle the rest." He paused. "But this is a large step, Edward," There is no return. I know, Edward said. Are you doing this for Clara Whitfield? Edward was silent for a moment. For her and because it is right, he said. Sometimes those can be the same thing. The man looked at him, then smiled, a small, tired but genuine smile. You remind me of your father, he said. He used to speak like that. He returned to his desk, took up his pen. Very well, let us begin. From that day on, things moved quickly. The two names in Parliament reacted first with surprise, then with silence, then with distance from Hargrove. One spoke openly, in a meeting loud enough for the right people to hear. From that moment on, Hargrove's name was spoken differently in London, first in whispers, then louder. Margaret's story began to spread. No one accused him directly. London never accused directly. But the looks changed, invitations diminished, doors began quietly to close. Hargrove felt it. And when he did, he went to Sir William. Clara was at home that day. She was helping her mother, packing their belongings, quietly, methodically. They did not know when they would leave, but they knew they would. They spoke little, but thought the same things. Then voices rose from downstairs, sharp, loud, angry. Clara looked at her mother. Her mother looked back. Clara stood and walked to the door. As she descended the stairs, she heard Hargrove's voice, controlled but barely. Where are these rumors coming from, William? He was saying. My name is being discussed in Parliament. 10 years of work, 10 years of connections. I don't know, Sir William said. His voice was defensive. Ravenswood, Hargrove said. He's behind this, because of that girl. Clara has nothing to do with this. Clara has everything to do with it. Hargrove's voice rose. If not for her, Ravenswood would never touch me. Why would he? What have I ever done to him? Clara descended slowly, carefully. The drawing room door was slightly open. Inside, Hargrove stood, face flushed, gesturing sharply. Sir William stood opposite him, tense, defensive, and on Hargrove's face, on the face of London's polite, measured, admired lord, there was someone else now, the man from Margaret's letter. Clara saw him, and something inside her froze, then settled. Because now there was no doubt. She had seen it with her own eyes. If the arrangement collapses, Hargrove said, his voice dropping, growing more threatening, you collapse with it, William. We go down together. You know that. Sir William said nothing. Control the girl, Hargrove continued. Control Ravenswood. End this. He turned and walked toward the door. He opened it and saw Clara. They faced each other. Hargrove looked at her with that face, that true face Clara had just seen moments before. A second passed, then the familiar smile returned, precise, measured, the respectable Lord of London restored. Clara, he said. His voice had smoothed. A pleasure to see you. Clara did not step back. Lord Hargrove, she said evenly, this marriage will not take place. Hargrove's smile froze. Behind her, Sir William's voice broke in. Clara? But Clara did not take her eyes off the door. I read Margaret's letter, Clara said quietly, just loud enough for Hargrove to hear. I know everything. Hargrove stepped forward. Clara did not move back. Young ladies, Hargrove said, his tone hovering between politeness and threat. Sometimes believe they hear things they have not. It is a dangerous habit. I saw Margaret's handwriting, Clara replied. I read her 10 years. The dangerous habit is knowing and choosing to remain silent. Silence, 3 people, a narrow hallway. The distant hum of London at midday. Hargrove looked. Clara looked back. and for the first time Hargrove looked away. It was a small thing, but Clara felt it. She felt him retreat in that corridor. Hargrove left. The door closed. Sir William stepped forward. "What have you done?" he said. His voice trembled, whether from anger or fear or both. "Do you know what you've done, Hargrove?" "Hargrove is finished," Clara said. She turned to him, to that calculating cold man who had spent years putting a price on everything. "London knows now, and you know what happens next." Sir William looked at her. Then, unexpectedly, he sat down, as if his legs could no longer hold him. "You've ruined this house," he said. His voice was tired now, the anger gone, only exhaustion remaining. "You ruined it," Clara said, "years ago." She took her mother. That same afternoon, they packed 2 bags, no more than that was needed. Her mother's hands trembled as she prepared. Clara held them firmly without letting go. "I'm afraid," her mother said. "So am I," Clara said. "But we're leaving." They walked down the stairs. Sir William was in his study, the door closed, no sound from within. Clara paused for a moment, looking at the door. Nothing. She turned, took her mother's hand, walked to the front door. Outside it was cold, but the sky was clear, one of those rare, genuine touches of sunlight in London. Her mother stopped at the threshold, looking out as if seeing the street for the first time, as though a window, long sealed, had finally been opened. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To Vivian," Clara said. "For now." Her mother nodded, began to walk. Clara lingered a step behind, turned once more, looking at the house. The stone facade, the drawn curtains, the window of Sir William's study. She had lived there for years, watched her mother fade within those walls. Then she turned and walked. Vivian opened the door and saw the 2 women, one young, one older, both exhausted, each holding a single bag. She asked no questions. She stepped aside and let them in. "What do you need?" she asked. "A room," Clara said. "A few days?" "You may stay a month," Vivian said, closing the door. That night, Clara sat alone in Vivian's small drawing room. Her mother was asleep, for the first time truly asleep. Vivian had said it. She put her head on the pillow and was gone. When Clara heard that, something inside her loosened. A candle burned on the table. Night sounds drifted in from outside. Clara thought of Hargrove, of Sir William, of that corridor, of her mother's trembling hands. Then she thought of something else. Edward. Vivian entered and sat beside her. "There is news," she said. "A note just arrived." Clara took it. Edward's handwriting, short, direct. "Hargrove lost his last 2 allies in Parliament this evening. He will call his solicitor in the morning. I've heard it. London is finished with him. Sir William likely knows by now. Are you and your mother safe?" E.A. Clara held the note. "Are you safe?" That was what he had asked. The first thing he had asked. Not Hargrove, not Sir William, not London. "Are you and your mother safe?" She looked at Vivian. "Do you have a pen?" Vivian brought one. Clara wrote, brief, 2 lines. "We are safe. My mother slept peacefully for the first time tonight. For that, I thank you. C.W." She folded the note and handed it back. That night, Clara could not sleep for a long time, but not because she was thinking of Hargrove, not because she was thinking of Sir William. She was thinking of Edward's question, "Are you safe?" In London, people asked many things: what you wore, whom you knew, where you came from. But who asked that? Who, above all else, asked if you were safe? Clara thought about it, and that small, dangerous, unquiet voice inside her said something different this time. It was no longer dangerous, it was simply true. Hargrove's downfall was complete within a week. London moved quickly in such matters. A name rose slowly, but fell fast. Parliament doors closed, meetings were cancelled, invitations ceased. Hargrove was seen a few times, first angry, then anxious, then simply tired. Margaret's story was now known to everyone. No one spoke it aloud, but everyone knew. In London, that was enough. A week later, Sir William sent Clara a note, a single line. "Hargrove has withdrawn from the arrangement. You may return home." Clara read it, folded it, placed it on the table. She did not reply. Edward came to Vivian's house once during that time, not to see Clara, or so he told himself. He had come to explain the final details of the Hargrove matter. But when Vivian opened the door, Clara was standing behind her. They faced each other. "Duke," Clara said. "Miss Whitfield," Edward replied. Vivian looked at them both, sighed. "I'll make tea," she said, and disappeared. Efficiently, quietly, without hesitation, Clara let him in. They went into the small drawing room, sat opposite each other, the table between them, the sounds of London outside. But this time the room felt different, less formal, less distant. Or perhaps Clara simply felt it that way. "How is your mother?" Edward asked. "Well," Clara said, "better each day." She paused. "This morning she laughed, truly laughed. Vivian said something, and she laughed. I was surprised." Her voice softened. "I had not seen her laugh in a long time." Edward said nothing. He simply watched with that attentive, knowing gaze. "I need to thank you," Clara said, "for everything, for your investigation, for Margaret, for Parliament." "There is no need," Edward said. "There is," Clara said. "If not for you, I would still be walking into that house, unaware, uninformed." She paused. "My mother might still be there as well." Edward looked at her. "You left that house yourself," he said. "I only showed you the door. You were the one who opened it." Silence, a good silence, not heavy, not strained. Just the two of them in a small room, while London carried on outside. Clara looked at her hands, then lifted her head. "When I first saw you in the park," she said, "I turned my eyes away immediately. Do you remember?" "I do," Edward said. "After the ball, on the way home, I kept turning my eyes away as well." She gave a faint smile, at herself, at the past. "Every time I turned away, because I knew what would happen if I didn't." "What would have happened?" Edward asked quietly. Clara thought. "This," she said, "exactly this." Edward stood. He stopped before the table, 2 steps away, that same proper distance, but this time it felt different. Not a boundary, but a threshold. "Clara," he said. When he used her name, he was serious. "After all of this is settled, after your mother is safe, after everything is in order." He paused. "I would like to see you, properly, correctly, according to London's rules." His eyes were on hers. "If you wish it as well." Clara looked at him. She thought of him, from the ball to now. The park, the dinner, Margaret's letter, Sir William's door, that one question. "Are you safe?" Then she thought of her mother, laughing that morning. Then of herself, walking out of that house with 2 bags, holding her mother's hand, not looking back. "I would," Clara said, plainly, no more, no less. But her eyes smiled. For the first time they did, and the weariness in Edward's face, the deep, long-carried weight, lifted for a moment. Only a moment, but it was enough. Vivian entered with the tea at that exact moment. She looked at their faces, set the tray down, sat. "Good," she said simply, without asking anything. The three of them laughed. From that day forward, things moved slowly, but rightly. Edward began to visit, once a week, then twice. Always at Vivian's house, always at proper hours, always within the bounds of London's expectations. Clara's mother was present as well, at first quietly, then speaking, then asking Edward questions. One day she looked at him, long, measuring, with that unmistakable maternal gaze. Then she looked at Clara. She said nothing. But that look said everything. Clara understood. 2 months later, Edward made his formal proposal. It happened in Vivian's drawing room. No grand occasion, no invitations, no champagne. Just Edward, Clara, and her mother. Edward stood and spoke, briefly, directly, in his own manner. He did not embellish. "I want Clara," he said, "and I want your mother to come with us, both of you, not half." Her mother froze. Then she began to cry, quietly, covering her mouth, her shoulders trembling. Clara held her hand. Edward waited, without impatience. "Yes," Clara said, and her mother, with tears in her eyes, bowed her head. The wedding took place in September. The weather had cooled, and London had begun to turn gold. The church was small, Clara's choice. The guests were few. Vivian, 2 of Edward's closest friends. An old friend her mother had lost years ago, but recently found again. And Margaret Hartwell. Edward had invited her, by letter, quietly written, without pressure. "If you wish to come, come. If not, we will understand." Margaret had come from Scotland after a long journey with a small suitcase. She had stood at the door and seen Clara. They had never met, but Margaret had looked at her, long, searching, reading. Then she had said, "You are a strong girl, good." At the beginning of the ceremony, Clara walked in, with her arm linked through her mother's. Her mother was trembling, slightly, the kind of trembling that could be joy or nerves, impossible to tell. Clara held her hand tightly. "Are you well?" she asked. Her mother looked at her and smiled, the same smile Clara had seen that morning. Real, deep, something long buried, finally rising to the surface. "For the first time," her mother said, "I can say yes." Clara walked forward. There was candlelight in the aisle, autumn sunlight filtering in from outside. Edward stood waiting ahead, upright, composed. His face was different that morning. As Clara drew closer, she saw it clearly. The weariness was gone. Not entirely, years do not vanish in a few months. But its edges had softened. The weight in his eyes had lifted, and his gaze was on Clara. Only on Clara. The vows were spoken. The priest spoke, the words followed, the ring was placed. Clara looked into Edward's eyes, those attentive, truthful eyes that had always been entirely on her. And she thought this. From the night of the ball, he had seen her. While she turned her eyes away, tried to escape, gave her word, closed doors, he had seen her. And he had waited. Without force, without purchase, simply waited. "Good evening," he had said at a dinner. "Is it better not to say what is not right?" "Are you safe?" She remembered all of it, and as she spoke her vows, her voice trembled, only on the first word. Then it steadied. When they stepped outside, autumn sunlight fell across their faces. Clara paused, closed her eyes for a moment, felt the warmth, real and present, then opened them. Edward was beside her. "Are you well?" he asked. Clara laughed. "You always ask that." "I always wonder." "I know," Clara said, looking at him. "That's why everything changed." Her mother came to them. Clara turned, looked at her, in her silver blue dress, her clear eyes, dried tears still faint on her cheek. She looked beautiful, not in a way Clara had ever seen before, not outward, but something carried from within. Edward turned to her mother and inclined his head. "Welcome," he said. Just those 2 words, but they were full. Her mother looked at him, looked for a long time. Then, for the first time, she smiled at him. Margaret stood to the side. Clara went to her. They stood together, looking at the church, at the people, at what remained of that small, simple, real ceremony. "How do you feel?" Clara asked. Margaret thought for a moment. "Long ago," she said, "this could have been mine as well." Her voice did not break. "It wasn't, but it is yours." She turned to Clara. "That is enough. Sometimes seeing another's happiness is enough." Clara took her hand. Margaret did not let go immediately. The carriage arrived. Edward held the door. Before stepping in, Clara turned, looked once more at the church, her mother, Margaret, Vivian, the autumn day. She took it all in. Then she stepped inside. Edward followed. The door closed. The carriage moved. London passed by the window, crowded, loud, unchanged. The same city where there had once been a ball, and where Clara had felt like something displayed, priced, for sale, now. She passed through that same city, the same streets, the same stone buildings, but everything was different, because this time it was her choice. "Where are we going?" Clara asked. "Ravenswood," Edward said. "The country house." "Is it large?" "Very," Edward said. "Too large." He paused. "But there is a room for your mother, sunlit, overlooking the garden. I think she will like it." Clara turned to him. "You thought of my mother," she said. "I said both of you," Edward replied. "Not half." Clara turned back to the window. London fell behind, slowly, street by street. Then the countryside began. Yellow fields of autumn, trees turning, the air clearing. It was beautiful. 1 year later, the gardens at Ravenswood were in bloom with spring. Her mother went out every morning, early, with the birds, a cup of tea in her hand. She would sit, look, sometimes do nothing at all. Clara watched her from the window at times. The pale, exhausted face was gone, replaced by someone else. Not younger, not unlined, just more present, more there. One morning, Edward had come to stand beside Clara at the window. They had both looked at her mother in the garden. "She looks well," he said. "A little more each day," Clara replied. Margaret had visited once, from Scotland again, with that same small suitcase. She stayed for a week. She and Clara's mother spent hours together in the garden, talking, sitting in silence, speaking again. Clara did not ask what they spoke of. She did not need to. When Margaret left, she embraced Clara at the door. "Let me tell you something," she said. "I ran. I had no other choice, I know, but you fought." She stepped back, looked at Clara's face. "There is a difference." There had been one message from Sir William, through a solicitor, formal, cold. A document claiming her mother's share in the house. Edward had handed it to his lawyer. It was resolved within 2 weeks. Clara did not ask how. Edward did not explain. One evening after dinner, he simply said, "It's done." Clara nodded. She did not thank him. He did not expect it. It was finished. That was enough. Hargrove had withdrawn from London. They said he had gone to the countryside, to a small estate, quiet, isolated. No one visited, no one asked. London had forgotten. It always did. Margaret heard the news. She wrote Clara a short note. "I heard. Good." Nothing more was needed. One Sunday morning, Edward and Clara were walking in the garden. Her mother sat on a bench in the distance, holding a book but not reading, simply looking at the sun. Birds could be heard faintly. "Are you happy?" Edward asked. Clara turned to him. He always asked that, sometimes in the evenings, sometimes while walking like this, sometimes unexpectedly. And every time he truly meant it, Clara thought. Of that night she had felt like something displayed. Of Sir William's study, of Margaret's letter, of the 2 bags, her mother's trembling hands, Vivian's door, then of this moment, the garden, the sun, her mother in the distance, the man beside her. Yes, Clara said. Then she smiled, small, real, sincere. And I will be a little more each day. Edward stopped. In the garden, under the spring sun, he looked at Clara with those attentive, truthful eyes that had always been entirely on her. And the weariness, the one that had lived in his bones for years, was gone. Her mother looked from the bench, saw them together in the garden in the sunlight, and she smiled, truly smiled. Thank you for listening to the story all the way to the end. Please tell us which city you're watching from and what the story made you feel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new stories.